Good morning everyone. A lot of people have been asking me about these portable air purifiers and whether I think you should buy them. First thing I want to say is buy other stuff first. Start by getting yourself good quality face masks. This one I cut open because I wanted to show you. It has an outer layer, repels water. It has an inner filter, then a second filter, and then your inner absorbent layer. So this is actually a 4-ply mask, and this is made right here in the Philippines. So I'll have a video coming about that soon. The next thing you need is some kind of hand sanitizer, whether it's alcohol gel, or some kind of soap. Make sure you can clean your hands regularly. If you can do soap and water, that's best, but if not, have something like this that you can carry around. Thirdly, invest in a high quality face shield. Not only does this give you better protection compared to the others that only cover like a small section of your face, but it's also going to last you longer, which means you won't keep buying new ones. Plus, because it's stronger, it's easier to clean, to disinfect. And then of course you're going to observe social distancing, which doesn't cost you anything. So if you've done all of those things and you still have budget, that's the time you can consider a portable air purifier like this. Now let's start by saying something that some people don't want to admit. These are not proven to protect you against COVID. They were originally made for things like hay fever, pollutants in the air, dust, things like that. They look pretty similar. You'll see they've got these little brushes on top. This one has double brushes. What they do is they release negative ions in the air, and then when something comes along, let's say it's a piece of dust, the negative ion will attach itself to that and it will drop down. So those people who say these are killing viruses, killing dust, that's not true actually. What they're doing is the negative ion is attaching to that and then it's dropping. So when you're wearing this, you have to be aware of that, because you might end up with a lot of stuff stuck to your clothes. Now visually no one's going to see it. You're not going to be able to say, oh, you have a stain there, but it's still there. So you have to be careful not to go like this and then scratch your eye or touch your mouth. That's also why a face shield is useful, because it prevents you from touching your eyes and your mouth. So what are the differences between these? This is a generic from Shopee. It cost around 600 pesos. And this is the AvicheM1, which is a little bit more expensive, but this was sent to me for free for review. Well, big difference is battery life. This one I get around 8 hours before I have to recharge it. This one I've already had it up to 30 hours before I recharged it. So that's a big difference, and I mean you can tell that already by the size. Another thing is the way that they generate the negative ions. You'll see this one has 2 sets of brushes. Let me zoom in. Whereas the Aviche only has 1 brush on top. Now, does that make a difference? It's hard to tell, because it's not like we have equipment to see how many negative ions these are really generating. But what you can do is, if you listen very carefully, you can hear a high pitch where it's generating the negative ions and they're going into the air. And you can actually hear that. If I hold it up to my microphone, hopefully you can hear that on the microphone. This one has a constant stream, but it's not so loud, whereas this one is pulsed, the Aviche. If I hold it up to the microphone, you can probably hear that it sounds a bit like a beep, and that's around 1 second. And you can also see that in testing. If you put this in a smoky environment, you'll see where the smoke is going whoosh, whoosh. It's actually physically being pushed around by the negative ions. So for our first test, we have a PM 2.5 sensor. This measures the pollutants in the air, and then I have a hose here where I can blow in some kind of pollutant. If we zoom in on the meter there, you see it's currently reading 16 micrograms, but let's put in some pollutant and see the difference. I'll use a glycerin based vape. So you probably saw the vape go inside. We're at 216, 283. Let me zoom in again. So immediately it's measuring much higher. And we've already hit the limit of 999. That's going to be stuck there for a while because there's no way for the pollutant to leave the jar. We'll open it and let it out ourselves. We should see this number start to decrease now that I've opened the jar and allowed the pollutant to escape, although it's still taking a little bit of time. Okay, there we go, 930, 891. So it is dropping, but it took quite a bit of time. So we've reset the test. We're down to a much more reasonable reading. We're going to remove the cap and this time place one of our portable air purifiers inside. And again, I'm going to blow a pollutant in using this. So let's zoom in. So again, you probably saw that enter, and we should see this reading start to climb, although there might be so many negative ions already inside. Okay, there we go, 120, 180. Let's see if it goes as high this time and whether it can drop on its own without having to remove the cap. Okay, so we hit the maximum reading of 999, but let's see if it can actually reduce by itself this time compared to before where we had to remove the cap and air it out. Okay, there you go, 941, 881, so it's actually dropping on its own and we didn't have to remove the cap like last time. But again, it reminds you that the initial exposure is there. It takes some time for the negative ions to really catch up, especially if there's a big exposure. So we're down to 125, it's dropping pretty rapidly now. Let's see if we can get back to our starting point, which was somewhere around 24. Okay, still dropping. Wow, look at that, 15. So we're actually at a better point than where we started, 14. So that performed pretty well. Let's put the Avicii inside. Oh, interestingly, when I opened it and started to move it around, suddenly it spiked up to 500. Can you see that on the screen? Let me zoom in. 700, 800. So as soon as we removed our air purifier, it's rising again. And I guess that's the important thing to remember about these purifiers. What they're actually doing is the negative ions are attracting themselves to the pollutant and making it drop. Once you start disturbing it, you might actually put it back into the air. So that's actually a perfect example. I'm glad that happened on camera. Okay, so we have the Avicii inside now, and we're going to blow in our pollutant just like before. So I'm sure you could see that on camera. Let me zoom in. 26, 43, okay, here we go. But it seems to be climbing a lot slower, but let's see. Okay, 230, 300. Of course, this is not perfectly scientific because we're not necessarily pumping in the exact amount each time, but I'm trying to get them pretty similar. Are we going to max it out? Okay, 999, maxed out the meter, so let's see how long it takes before it starts to drop down and then how rapidly it drops down. We're not going to remove the cap, we're going to allow the personal purifier to do its job. Okay, it's been around 30 seconds and it's still maxed out at 999. Okay, here we go, here's the drop going down. So again, it does take some time for the jar to get full of negative ions and to start dropping those pollutants, but we're getting a pretty rapid drop. We're down to 600. I'll just zoom out so you can see the bigger picture here. We have a jar, we have the PM 2.5 sensor inside which measures particulates. We have our Avicii air purifier, and then we have a hose here where we can blow in our pollutant. Oh look, it went back up again. 999. So yeah, it is dropping down again. This small enclosure might actually be working against the Avicii because it generates such a strong stream of negative ions that it actually pulses the air. So what might be happening is all the particulates are dropping to the bottom. It's pulsing the air and then actually forcing them to come up again. That's possible because remember, you're not really meant to run it inside a small jar like this. It's meant to be, you know, worn outside the body. Okay, we're down to 129. Took a little bit of time, but it is making progress. So we are down to 32, but it did spike up again a moment ago. Okay, we're down to 21, 20. Let's see if we can get it as low as the last one. Oops, looks like we're going back up again. There, you see we're already at 910 again. So actually the AvicheM1 might be too strong for this little container here. But very interesting, no? And that really does show you that these do not remove pollutants. What they do is they move them. They force them down and then they land on things. So yeah, very interesting, no? You have to understand how these work and the limitations. I would wear one of these. I am wearing one of these every day, and I'm choosing the Aviche because it has the longer battery life. But if you only gave me the choice of a high quality mask or a personal air purifier, I will take the mask first. So there you go. That was a lot of talking about these portable air purifiers. Like I mentioned, these were originally for people with hay fever and things like that. They were never designed specifically for COVID protection. And as far as I know, they've not been proven to help with that. If you have the budget, buy one. I use one and I hope that it helps, but we don't know for sure. That's why focus first on your mask, your face shield, your hand sanitizer, things like that. And if you have extra budget, that's the time you consider buying one of these. So that wasn't the most exciting video, and there's only so much we can do to test these, but hopefully you found it helpful. Thanks for watching.